You ever been at the coast, seen a long strip of sand stretching out into the water, and just thought, how in the world did that get there? Well, today, we're diving into the incredible natural forces that literally build new land right out in the open.
Yeah, that amazing thing is called a sand spit. And to really get how they're made, you have to understand the power of the ocean. It's like this massive, non-stop engine that's always, and I mean always, sculpting our coastlines.
So, it all starts with this invisible force that's constantly at work. I want you to picture a giant conveyor belt running right alongside the coast, just endlessly picking up sand and moving it along. This one process is the key to everything we're about to see.
And that engine? It's got a name, longshore drift. This is the single most important process behind a sand spit, and it all boils down to the simple, repetitive, but incredibly powerful action of waves crashing on the shore.
Okay, so first up is the swash. Now, you gotta know, waves almost never hit the beach straight on, right? The wind usually pushes them in at an angle. So every time a wave breaks, it shoves water and a whole bunch of sand diagonally up the beach.
But you know, what goes up has to come down. As that water runs out of steam, gravity just takes over. And the backwash pulls all that water and the sand it's carrying straight back down the beach at a perfect 90-degree angle to the coast. And here's where it all clicks. Angle up, straight down. Angle up, straight down. Now, just imagine that simple little dance repeated millions and millions of times with every single grain of sand. What you get is this constant zigzag journey. And that right there is our conveyor belt in action, moving tons of sand down the coast.
All right, so this conveyor belt of sand is always on the move. But for it to actually start building something as cool as a spit, it needs something to happen. It needs a trigger, a kind of disruption in its path.
And that trigger is a sharp turn in the coastline. Think of a bay or the mouth of a river. All of a sudden, the land just turns away. This creates this little pocket of calmer, more sheltered water that's protected from the main force of the waves.
So this sheltered spot, it basically becomes a construction zone. That conveyor belt, which has been working so hard carrying all this sand, is about to get to a point where it just has to drop its entire load.
You see, as the waves roll into this calm water, they lose all their energy. They just can't carry that heavy load of sand anymore, so they do the only thing they can do. They drop it. And particle by particle, layer by layer, the sand starts to pile up.
This brings us to what I like to call the golden rule of making a spit. It's this constant battle, right? You've got two forces at work. For the spit to actually grow, the rate of deposition, that's the sand being dropped, has to be bigger than the rate of erosion. It's an incredibly fine line.
Now, this is not a fast process. We're talking decades, centuries, maybe even thousands of years. But slowly and surely, that underwater sandbank gets higher and higher until one day it finally breaks the surface of the water. And just like that, a brand new piece of land is born.
But here's the thing about a sand spit. It's never really done. It's basically a living, breathing landform that's constantly being shaped and reshaped by the exact same forces that created it in the first place.
So as long as that sand conveyor belt keeps on chugging along and the wind and the currents all stay the same, the spit will just keep growing, reaching further and further out into the water in a pretty straight line. But what happens when things change? I mean, let's be real. The ocean is hardly ever that predictable. What happens when the wind decides to blow from a different direction? Well, a big shift in the wind or a strong new current can actually start pushing the very end of the spit inward, back toward the land. It bends the tip, creating this really classic feature you can see on maps. It's called a hooked end.
And what's really incredible is that this whole process also creates a new opportunity for life. That now super protected, calm water behind the spit becomes the perfect trap for fine mud and silt. This quiet area allows salt-loving plants to grow, and eventually a vibrant salt marsh forms, a nursery for fish and a total paradise for birds.
So look, this isn't just some theory you read about in a geology class. This process creates huge, recognizable, and sometimes pretty famous landmarks all over the globe. If you want a fantastic real-world example, you just have to look at Spurn Head on the coast of Yorkshire in England. It is a classic, dynamic sand spit. It's got the perfect hooked end and the beautiful marshland behind it that we've been talking about.
And that really leaves us with one last big thought. These incredible landforms are in a constant state of change, a never-ending tug of war between being built up and being torn down. It makes you realize that a coastline isn't some fixed line on a map. It's a living, breathing thing, and it really makes you question what permanent even means on our constantly changing planet.